embroider a mama applique sweatshirt of my daughter's onesies with me. I first use my hoop grid to find the center and align it with my water-soluble pen. I then take a piece of cutaway stabilizer and cut it and put it underneath, and then hoop my sweatshirt. I have a single needle flatbed embroidery machine, so I am using a 5x12 multi-positional hoop. I got this design on Etsy and I am using Embroider's Essentials. My machine stitched the bottom layer stitch, and then I took my small tape measure and measured it to know how much to cut of my daughter's onesie and shirt. I am using a onesie and a shirt just because they are so small, so that I have enough for two for the both M's and both A's. I'm using fabric scissors and I'm just cutting as far as I can on each side of the shirt and the onesie. I'm using my Cricut heat press, but you can also use an iron, and then I'm using Heat and Bond Light and just cutting that to the approximate size that I cut of the onesie and the shirt. I'm then ironing those both on the back of the onesie and the shirt and then just peeling those off. I then place my first piece of fabric over that M. You just want to make sure that it covers all of the M and let it stitch that next layer. I do use my hands just to make sure that it lays down flat. I do stop it after it is done with the M because it will go straight onto the A, and I have a different piece of fabric for the A. I did cut back a piece of the M fabric just so that it didn't go over on top of the A. I then place down that A fabric, and it's going to do the same thing, stitch the next layer over that A. Next, I take my applique scissors and I'm going to cut around the M and the A as close as I can to that stitch line. This is a very tedious part, and you just want to make sure that you're very careful that you don't cut the sweatshirt behind it. For the middle of the A, I do cut a little hole so that I can get in there and cut around the inside of the A because there is no opening to cut. This video is sped up. It does take some time, but it does get better and easier the more that you do it. I did have quite a few mess ups the first time that I did this. I then put it back in my machine for it to do the final stitch, which is that top satin stitch, and it will cover up the frayed sides of your fabric. Because I am using a multi-positional hoop, I am moving it over to do the second half of the design, and here I am just closing out that first design and opening up the second design for it to stitch the next part. This then repeats that process over. It's going to do that first stitch for the M and the A. Lay your fabric down again. Again, I'm cutting the side of that M so that it doesn't cover up that A. And then take your applique scissors and cut around the sides of those stitches again. And then carefully put it back in your machine for it to do one final stitch for that satin stitch for the M and the A. I do use hair clips to hold it back so it doesn't stitch over itself on the sweatshirt. I then take it out and I'm cleaning it up with my embroidery scissors to cut up those little threads on the front and back, and then I take my Bilduck scissors and cut the stabilizer on the back, using water to wash off that water-soluble pen. I'm now doing the sleeve, and I will find the center using my hoop grid and